I wanted to divorce-proof my life. I wanted to be so smart and intelligent. I did end up getting divorced from the person that I was married. Being a couples therapist was really interesting because I thought that I could save my marriage. I thought that if I just tried harder, if I just applied more tools, it also kept me in my marriage a lot longer than it probably should have because I had this extra pressure as a couples therapist and
you didn't want it to fail.
I get some comments sometimes that are, well, you failed at your marriage, so why are you even out here sharing any information?
I think actually if you have fireworks and you have this crazy spark, it's actually a red flag. And it hit me like a sack of bricks. And the second that it was taken away, I was like, holy shit.
I'm a therapist. And so there's this need to go towards these big feelings, like big joy, big sadness, big excitement. And if you can't meet me there, we can network. I'll see you at some sort of, event. But I really have a hard time being one-on-one with individuals that I can't get there with.
Welcome to Stacked, the show that helps you become your own best asset. Because in case you missed it, you're allowed to have a high vibe and a high net worth. Welcome back to Stacked, the show that helps you become your own best asset. Today we're talking to Maria Sosa, aka Holistically Grace, one of my closest friends here in Miami. We got to know each other a couple of years ago through a Brickle Babes event that we co-hosted. And she's just become somebody that I absolutely adore spending time with. Feel very recharged whenever we are together. She's also a Miami-based licensed couples therapist and divorce counselor. She's an author. She is very active on social media, always giving out great relationship advice. And we are going to just have a fun conversation today about all things relationships, friendship, romantic, money, all of it. This one's a little unstructured because I feel like every time we hang out,
we just can't stop talking.
We can't stop talking, and our conversations should be a podcast episode. So we're just going to see where this one flows. So so it's so good to see you today.
Same.
Thank you for coming in. We started kind of having a conversation before we officially started the episode. So I want to just go back to that because I think it was a topic that's important. We were talking about relationships and relationships that drain us versus deplete us. And, the older I feel like I get, the more mature, the more intentional I am with my time. And I feel like I've cut out a lot of people in the last 3 years from my life. Not necessarily that are really toxic people, but we were saying like some of them just not receptive people. And, I feel like we're the same in that, like I'm an empath. I feel things really deeply, highs, lows. I'm a crier. Like
I love to cry so much so. I need what you're saying, those big feelings. So I'm a lover. I'm a therapist. And so there's this need to go towards these big feelings. Again, like big joy, big sadness, big excitement, big even disappointment. I think you really have to go through all of those things. And so it is hard for me to relate to individuals who can't get there with me. And if you can't meet me there, we can network. I'll see you at some sort of, event. But I really have a hard time being one-on-one with individuals that I can't get there with just because, I don't know. I don't know if it's a matter of we're not really in alignment. But I think you're right about this idea of time. And the older that we get, our time feels a little bit more valuable, and it feels that I want to spend it with the people who can have these in-depth conversations with me.
100%. What is your horoscope sign?
I'm a Capricorn, but you know how they say that your rising is actually
your personality, your outward,
more of your outward personalities, and that's a Gemini. I don't really know.
Is it really?
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
Like half my family is a Gemini.
That's so funny.
Geminis are spicy.
It's interesting because I I think I see myself in a very specific way. And apparently, or according to the sign stuff, it's like very like moody in a way, right? Because Gemini is like
it's the twins.
It's the twins, right? So it's kind of like, or maybe that has to do with the fact that I can access all of these areas of myself, like the deep sadness, the deep joys, all of those. I don't know what it means.
And what's your moon sign?
So Capricorn, Gemini.
Okay, so I am Aquarius, Pisces rising, and then Capricorn moon.
Oh, okay.
So Capricorns are like very like focused, like really detail oriented. They're hard workers. They're very dedicated. Yes. Aquarius is an air sign. Gemini is an air sign. Aquarius and Gemini get along very, very well. Mm-hmm. So there's, anyway, a lot of this must be why we get along so well.
I don't know.
That's so funny.
I mean, whether that is, star signs or, just the fact that we just really get along and
we just really get along.
Conversations.
We just really
whatever you want to call it, whatever you want to label it, we get along.
So I want to talk about like your background. How did you get into couples therapy? Because I think you have such a unique story of how you ended up in the career that you have today.
Yes. So it wasn't my first profession. I studied marketing and public relations, and that was one of those careers that was chosen pretty much by my father. He's an economist. And so at the age of 18, when you're supposed to decide what to do with the rest of your life, my father kind of decided that for me. And I said, okay, I think you know better than me.
Right.
I'll let you pick and choose what to do with my life. And
you only know what you know at 18.
Right.
It's like
right.
Your parents at that point in time, they're like, not a knock to our parents, but like they're the most important people in your life. They're almost like these godlike figures. So you just do what
they're on a pedestal.
Right.
They're
totally
definitely
on a pedestal.
And so I kind of went that route, but I knew that it's not what I wanted to do. And so thankfully I had the opportunity to go back to school. And that's when I started studying psychology and loved it. I knew that I had always loved it. I just was so intrigued and interested in humans and why we behave the way that we do. Why do we do the things that we do? Sometimes we're rational and logical, and sometimes we're so irrational and emotional. And so I wanted to go back to school for that, and I did. And then to be honest, I think that this is my underlying, unconscious programming, which is I wanted to study relationships. And it was more about making sure that I didn't become my parents, right? So the relationship my mom and my dad had, there wasn't a lot of conflict. I didn't grow up seeing that, but there was a lot of detachment. There was a lot of indifference between them. There wasn't much affection. And so I thought, well, I never want to grow up to be in a relationship like that. I want to make sure that I am loved and I am loving.
You wanted these big feelings we were talking about. I wanted the big
feelings. Yeah. And so what better way to do that than to be preventative about all this, than go to school and become a couples therapist and make sure that I didn't get divorced and make sure that I was an expert at relationships. So I wanted to divorce-proof my life. I wanted to be so smart and intelligent.
And at this point, when you decided to go back to school, you were married, right?
I was in a relationship, yes, with someone that I would soon marry, and for sure thought this is also going to help me and prevent my own divorce. And so unfortunately, the universe sometimes has other plans for you. And no matter how much you try to prevent or how much you try to do whatever it is that you try to do to prevent a divorce, sometimes it just happens. And sometimes it takes two people to be in a relationship and you can't carry it yourself. So unfortunately, I did end up getting divorced from the person that I was married. And there's a lot of things that I learned about that. And being a couples therapist was really interesting because I thought that I could save my marriage. I thought that if I just tried harder, if I just applied more tools, if I just did the things that I learned in grad school, then I could save it, then I could do that. And it just wasn't possible. And it also kept me in my marriage a lot longer than it probably should have, because I had this extra pressure as a couples therapist, and
you didn't want it to fail.
Yes.
Because you're supposed to be leading
right.
by example.
I'm also on social media telling all
Yeah.
these couples,
So like at this point, had you built up your social media following?
Yes, I had.
Pretty substantially.
Yeah, I had. The account had grown over the pandemic, and everybody needed relationship advice.
Everybody.
Being stuck at home
Yeah.
with their partners. And so I had created a lot of content around that. And there was a lot of shame for me attached to that. And for a long time, and I'm a pretty private person. So I think that my account, I pretty much keep to, this is how I can help you. These are the ways in which, let me teach you the things that I know, but not let me tell you about me. Let me tell you about my relationships and everything that's going on there. So it was always very private. And it wasn't until quite recently, actually, that I started to share about my divorce and how I felt like I had to hide it, or how I felt like I couldn't share with other people, because it was, for me, quite embarrassing.
Yeah. No, I mean, I can totally understand that. Like, I think social media is such an important part of, your personal brand. And I always find it fascinating to talk to different people that are, they've built a career out of the space, and what does privacy look like to each individual creator out there, because some people are oversharing every single thing. There's relationship accounts out there where they're literally sharing screenshots of text messages from dates or fights with their husband, or just like they've pulled back the curtain so far. But then there's people on the other end of the spectrum where maybe you see them all the time, every single day on social media, but you actually don't really know anything about their personal life. So I think it's always very interesting to me how people decide how much they're comfortable with sharing and how much they're not. And I think when you get into when you find yourself in kind of like a role in social media where you are so passionate about helping other people grow and become the best version of themselves, there is a certain level of vulnerability that you're almost like, I don't know if required is the right word, but you feel like you owe it to your community to share some of the good, bad, and ugly so that they can learn and they can grow. And I think it also helps make you as the creator, the persona, the media persona, more relatable, and not to like make it about monetization and money, but it helps you become that much more relatable. And then it also helps your business grow at the same time. So it's not to say that you're doing this from like a monetization standpoint. That's not at all what I'm saying, but it's like, it's almost like a service. Like you owe it to your community to share, start sharing more in a vulnerable sense.
Yeah. And that's kind of like that fine line as well, again, of the person who shows up in front of the camera and the person behind it. And interestingly enough, when I do share these tiny snippets and these little bits of myself, there's a lot of when I do share these little bits and pieces of myself, there's a lot of receptiveness from the community, and they all feel very connected through those moments. I think one of the posts that I shared about being child-free, so many women in the comments were talking about their own experiences and how they were also child-free. When I shared about my divorce, so many women. And so those, interestingly enough, those moments when you do share little bits and pieces of yourself are actually the ones that people are most drawn to. Because the educational content is like anybody could do that. Anybody could share.
You can talk to ChatGPT, come up with 50 prompts for like, the same kind of content that's regurgitated, but that's not what makes you unique or special or your story.
Yes. And then that other piece, which is, I think that it's hard as a couples therapist to share about divorce, because people have this image of you and that's the image that I had of myself, of you can do this, you can save this. If you cannot save your marriage, then how can you help others in their relationships? And so I get some comments sometimes that are, well, you failed at your marriage, so why are you even out here sharing any information, or why are we going to take any advice from you? You just, and some of them are nasty, and I understand.
I can only imagine like the nasty.
Yeah.
It's funny because the people that that you see the most anger and hate from on social media are never the ones that are showing up. Like organically or authentically on social media themselves. They're always like hiding behind some anonymous account. Like it's a
lot of projection for me. It's a lot I have to make you wrong because my way of living has to be right. Otherwise, my whole self falls apart, right? You and your ideas and the fact that your marriage failed, wrong. My decision to stay in my marriage, to not leave, to tough it out, to make it work. I have to create this whole brightness for my life to exist and for me to continue down this path. So I try not to take it personally, but I'm only human. So it's very interesting to want to share bits and parts of myself while also understanding that those are the parts that make me vulnerable to an attack on myself and the things that I do.
Totally. I want to come back to your decision to be child-free, but before we go there, I wanted to touch on, this idea of wanting to be a fixer in a relationship, whether it's with your family or with your romantic partner, because I feel like I also fall into that same trap. And I'm the oldest, you're the oldest. I think it's very common for particularly women to fall into this. It's not even fall into, it's like we're conditioned to be people pleasers. So I was the oldest. My parents had me at 25. They had 3 under 3 at 27 years old, which like that is so young to have that many kids. And at such a young age, I felt like I wanted my parents to be happy. I didn't want to cause them more stress. Like this is probably like 2 or 3 years old. And I knew if I cried louder than my little baby brothers, then I would see them stressed coming to try to help me. And I didn't want them to feel that way. When you're that little, you want your parents to be happy and give you love and attention. And so I think I was like and you tell me you're the expert, but conditioned to want people to get along, to want there to be peace, to want, it's this deeply ingrained people pleasing behavior that then translated into pretty much every single one of my relationships for the rest of my life, whether it was in a work capacity, friendship, romantic, and just wanting to like fix things and save things and giving so much more than I would receive in relationships, and then being upset when the other person wasn't meeting me.
Yeah, harmony. I think I've talked to so many women who are also eldest child. And there is this sense of, I just want everybody to get along. Yeah. I just want everything to be okay. And sometimes if everybody's okay, I'm okay. We might not.
We probably
okay.
actually aren't okay.
We're probably shoving things down, and we're probably freaking out, and we have all this anxiety, and we're feeling a lot of things. And yet that need for everybody else to be okay overrides that acknowledgement of our own emotional imbalance or emotional kind of dysfunction that we're feeling at that moment. But it's harmony at all costs. So I felt that for sure too. Different experience or different upbringing than you, but I still felt it. I still felt this need to make sure that, is everybody happy? Like, is everybody okay? Looking around, you're monitoring, you're trying to make sure that there's no conflict, that there's nothing going on. And some of it has to do with control, right? I want to control my environment. I want to control everything around me so I can just create peace. But the peace comes at a cost to us.
So how do you like recondition yourself to not fall into this people-pleasing mask or persona? How do you, figure out what your boundaries are so that you can be happy and you can put your needs first, and then have, the people in your life rise to meet you instead of you kind of pushing it down?
Yeah. The first one is the tolerance for discomfort. It's you have to raise your threshold in the discomfort so that you can handle more of these conflict or unharmonious. I don't think unharmony is a word. Disharmony?
Disharmony, I think, is
a
a
word. Okay,
Yeah.
yes. So because we're trying to have so much harmony, we have to be slightly uncomfortable in these moments where there is conflict, and you have to just kind of sit with it. And I know that sounds so therapeutic. Oh, sit with the feeling and sit with the thing. Sometimes it is just being a little silent in those moments and letting that anxiety from the conflict rise, because it does also subside. It also does kind of like a wave. It comes in and it comes out. And I think that the longer that we can just let that feeling wash over us, the more that we're able to have or tolerate conflict, because conflict in and of itself isn't bad. We need
conflict.
We really do. We need to.
You can't have the highs without the lows.
100%.
And that's like, if we want these deeply impassioned, emotional, like that true love, you need the high highs, you need the low lows. You shouldn't be in 100% alignment with everything on your partner.
Yes.
That's somebody's people pleasing, somebody's repressing
100%
something.
And that's the exposure therapy. So to answer your question, go a little bit deeper into what you asked me about how to raise that threshold of discomfort. That is I have to expose myself to these hard moments. I have to expose myself to these hard conversations. I have to let the wave of the discomfort come and then release it. Right. And through these small conversations, be present in the discomfort and know that, yes, it is going to be hard. And also, you're going to get a lot from this. Bit by bit, you'll start to build that sense of, oh, I can say the things that I am thinking, the things that I am feeling, the boundaries that I want to uphold. And it's not just, this Band-Aid that you kind of rip. It's a little bit of like, you take a little bit by bit, by having these hard conversations and practicing them and getting, again, more comfortable with tolerating that discomfort that comes from saying hard things.
And like, so if we're talking about, dating and relationships and having these conversations early in the game, like let's talk about early in the game dating. I think these are great ways to figure out if you do have alignment with somebody that you're dating, and communicating, your boundaries, your discomforts, your also comforts and things that you like early on, and seeing, is this person actually a match for me on these certain things, as opposed to like waiting months and months.
I think we are so afraid to show ourselves in those
first
kind of dates and those first couple of months. And I think that that's the time when you should really be all out.
Like your most authentic self.
Yes. Those are the moments because you're dating. You're just getting to know each other. I know that you want to send your representative on your first and second date.
100%.
Like, here's Maria's representative and she's great. She's so much fun. But the reality is you want to be so all in. This is me in these moments, because that's actually going to let you know early on how that person, how receptive are they to you? Is this actually a good fit? Because no, you don't want to be wasting your time. You don't want to be 6 months down the line and then you're like, actually, I'm really disorganized, or actually, I am really type A, or actually, I have a lot of anxiety about these certain things. But within the first 3 months of your relationship, you're like, I'm so easygoing. I'm so, that's not you. So do not waste your time. Do not waste the other person's time, and just go all in. The weird, the messy, the little complicatedness.
I feel like there is like a balance of, okay, I'm sure you've heard this a million times before, but it's like when you first start dating someone, you put out your best self, right? You put out this version of yourself that you want to be in a relationship. And I think, you get into like all the manifestation stuff on the internet too, but they're always like, live as if you're already in the relationship, live as if you're already like, you have all of these things that you want, live like that person. So I think it is a combination of, okay, I'm going to show up as my highest and best self, but I'm not going to suppress my needs or wants or who I am at the core to the point of abandoning myself? Like, how do you not self-abandon, but still show up as the person that you want to be in a relationship and communicate your needs and your wants? And I think I feel like it is a little bit, for me anyway, it's like, it's trial and error. It's a little bit of a fine line between, having mature conversations, communicating boundaries. And then also, like, to me, I would say the most important thing in any romantic relationship is of course, like, compatibility and alignment, but it's also compromise. Mm-hmm. I think compromise is like one of the least talked about qualities that you need in a long-term healthy relationship.
I'm with you. And I think it's a fine line between compromise and compromising yourself.
I love that.
I can compromise on things that don't go against my core beliefs, my core value. I can compromise on things that don't go against my core beliefs or my core values.
Right.
That's totally fine. We need that.
Right.
We need to.
That's what makes us different. That's what makes us human. And like, that's what makes you Maria and me Emily.
Correct. Yeah. We have to do that in terms of the compromise. But if we compromise ourselves, then we're really going against everything that makes us us, what you're saying, which is, that's what makes us Emily and that's what makes us Maria. And if I'm doing that, I'm not going to be
happy in your relationship
at all.
Because you're not yourself. You're being somebody else.
Yes. And it's also not sustainable because your true self is going to show up at some point. Right. You're really going to come to some conversations or some experiences or moments where that true self, because it is core, that's what's going to come out. And so you're going to be in this place of friction and you want to do things this way and they want to do it that way. And you can't really go against that.
Right.
Because it is so core to who you are.
Right.
And that's the point where we're saying, well, that's just a non-negotiable for me.
Right.
That's just not a thing that I can compromise myself on. However, I can compromise on these things. I can compromise on.
Like, what are some examples of like things you would say are okay to compromise on versus totally not okay?
Well, these are all personal, right?
Okay.
Because the things that I can compromise on are probably some of the things you would say, no, I can't, right? It's so personalized.
So like, we need to figure out for ourselves,
yes.
like, what are my non-negotiables
yes.
and what are
100%.
Where am I willing to compromise?
Yeah. So a non-negotiable for me is someone who is ambitious. I'm a very ambitious person. And so if you don't have that drive, if you're not thinking about where we're going to be 10 years down the line and how you're going to achieve and how you're going to do something good for the world, that's probably going to show up in so many ways throughout our relationship that it's not a good thing. But that might not be a non-negotiable for somebody else, right? That's probably not it. Maybe for them it is talking about a girlfriend. For her, animals are huge, right? So she would not in a million years go out on a date with someone or be with someone for whom animals was not important.
Like, you mean like having pets?
Having pets, doing things with animals. I'm thinking.
You're thinking of a specific person. I think I know who you're thinking of.
You know who I'm talking about, right?
Animals are very important to
this
that
person,
yes,
right?
Like it's like a core belief system.
It is a
almost.
thing. It is I want animals around my life at all times. So if for you, dog hair, or if for you, messiness around dogs, or if for you,
it's just
not
a
lifestyle, right?
Yeah.
I like to go on walks with my dog. Okay. If you're not there, not me, this person.
They want you.
They want you on these walks.
Yeah.
They want you to be a part of their life with the animals. I know it sounds so silly because it's just like, Maria, it's just pets, but no, it is
pets
a way.
Are like a member of the family for a lot of people.
They are. And I want a life with someone for whom this is also important, for whom this is also a core value. So it's thinking about what kind of life do you want? Mm-hmm. And can this person...
And is this person going to fit into...
Is going to fit.
Yeah.
Are they going to fit into this kind of life that you want? I think that that's probably the easiest way to look at these compromises and these negotiables and non-negotiables. If they cannot fit into this idea. And it's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be the perfect, and they're not going to check all your boxes. That's not it. It is these big ways of being in life or existing in the world.
The way you're showing up on like a day-to-day basis.
Correct. Yes. And
is the gym, like for me, the gym is really important. Like, and by gym, I mean like going to certain workout classes or just having like a very health and fitness oriented lifestyle. I could never be with somebody that didn't prioritize that to the same degree that I did, whether that means we're working out together sometimes, all of the time. It doesn't like, that is like a fundamental core value of mine. And it boils down to like diet, exercise, sleep hygiene. Like it spans a lot of different buckets. And it's for me, like that's a non-negotiable.
And later it comes out. Later it becomes a mismatch. Later it is, I am going to go to the workout classes. What are you going to do? Oh, you're going to play video games? Oof. That feels a little unattractive, you know? Or, oh, I want to go to bed. Oh, you want to go out and you want to party.
You want to stay out until 4 in the morning.
Until 4 in the morning.
What are you doing staying out until 4 in the morning every single night? Like you're in a relationship.
Yeah. So again, mismatch. Again, it's this sense of it. We want different things. We want different things from this relationship. And you are perfect for somebody else.
Right.
You're not perfect for me. You're not my match. You might be a great person, but we're just not aligned in these areas and these values and these beliefs.
Right. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think like it's, you know, like I've done this exercise a few times where I like will write out like what is my dream life scenario? What does like my life look like with family, with children, with partner, with work, like to a T. And it's not where my life is today, but it's like where I envision it. And then it's, okay, now how do I get there? Yeah. You almost have to like go to the end and then come backwards, reverse engineer it.
Yeah. And I think flexibility around that.
What does that exactly look like? It's like more about the feelings of.
Yes. Because I think if we look at family, right? And you think about, I want a family. Well, does it look very specific? Is it very picture perfect? Well, then you might want to edit that and say, I want the idea of a family, or I want the concept of a family, and I'm open to it looking different than what I grew up thinking it needed to look like. Maybe that looks like no children. Maybe that looks like adopting kids instead of having some of my own. Maybe that looks like we live in different households, but we are still having this sense of being in a committed relationship and it works for us, right? So more of this sense of, I want this concept and I'm open to it looking maybe non-conventional. Maybe I'm looking for it to look a little bit different, but the feeling is there of connection, of love, of having each other's back, of accountability, of dependability, of being in a relationship that repairs. If all of those things are there, then is it possible that it looks different?
Yes. Maybe it wasn't, maybe you have on your vision board 2 blonde-haired, blue-eyed twin boys and Christmas every year and matching sweaters, but is that actually what you're going after? No, it's more like, and you have to do the work within yourself, but maybe it's more of, I want these traditions and rituals of celebrating important holidays, with a nuclear family or with what is my family. Does that include friends, extended family? Like, what does that family look like? It's not necessarily about this picture, from Pinterest on the vision board. It's about the feeling that it evokes and the repetition of those emotions and on like a consistent, continual basis in that sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about your decision to be child-free.
Yes.
Was this always the case? Or has it changed over the years?
It's funny because I was looking at when I was in high school, senior year, we had to do this project for my psychology class. And we had to do a little scrapbook. And in the scrapbook were pictures, and there were also all of these questions that we had to answer, questions about the future, about our career, about death, about faith, spirituality.
And you're how old?
18.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm 18 at this time. And one of the questions that we had to answer was about children, about marriage. And it was so funny to go back and read these because I still have it. So I'm 39 right now. So, 20 years ago. And within those answers, for sure, were embedded this sense of, I don't know if I really want to get married. I don't know if I really want to have kids, but I think I'm supposed to.
Right.
I think I'm supposed to want these things. So maybe I will have it, or I will have the marriage, I will have the kids, but it'll come from this place of having to follow the rules. It will come from this place
The
of
people pleasing.
but even more than people pleasing, society.
Like you're literally people pleasing
Society, yes, definitely. And so because these are the things that you have to do, I feel like I will do them, but it's not what I want to do.
Or you're not even, probably at that point in time, you're like not even sure if it's what you want. You hadn't had enough life experience to even know.
But I knew
you weren't
question
sure.
it.
You knew to
right?
question
I
it.
knew to question
You had
it.
that like intuitive feeling inside of you.
Yes, definitely. And so when I have conversations with my mom now and I say, Mom, I don't think I ever really wanted kids, did I? And she said, no, you never really did. You weren't one of those girls that was, playing around with like the mommies and the daddies and the dolls and all of those things. You didn't want any of those things.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, it's not one of the things.
I was like the opposite.
Were you?
Oh my God. So my brothers, I have twin brothers. They're 2 years younger. When they were born, I literally thought they were my babies. I had, my own little baby dolls, but when they were born, I felt like I thought they were my kids and I would feed them. I mean, the best I could at 2.5 years old. Sure. But and I talked to my therapist about it now. My therapist just had her second child and her daughter is the same way. Like her daughter calls her other daughter my baby. And it's so funny how you're just
so
so interesting.
My younger brother is 8 years younger than me, so I was an only child for
basically
8 years. And I wanted a little brother, and then when he was born, I found out that he was getting all of the attention.
And you didn't like him anymore.
And I didn't like it, and I was like, oh my gosh, how did this other child come into my life and take everything away from me? And so I don't know, I never really wanted it. And the older I get, the more sure and secure I feel about that decision. And I have girlfriends who are on the fence and they are, this 50-50. I could have them, I could not have them. It kind of goes either way.
So many friends, like in the last, I would say 3 weeks, I have at least 4 girlfriends who a year ago told me, without a doubt, I definitely do not want children. Okay. And not every single one of them, but those 4 have all said to me in the last few weeks, they're not sure they might want to have kids now. Yeah. And they're thinking about freezing their eggs because they're not sure, is this the time? But I also am not certain if I want to have this taken away from me.
And that's, I think, how a lot of people put it. I don't know if I want this opportunity taken off the table.
So I had a really interesting experience on this topic. I always saw myself as, being a mom and having children. And in my mind, I'm like, I want to be pregnant most twice. I have twins in my family on both sides. So I will have, maybe I would have 2 sets of twins to have 4 kids, or, 3 kids, 2 twins, and just one on its own. And I've always had this idea in my head, but I've been very, I would say focused on myself and my career. I grew up in kind of a small town in Chicago where they maybe leave for college, they come back, and everybody basically gets married to each other and lives the exact same life that we all grew up in, the same neighborhood, same schools, all of that. And I always wanted something more. I wanted to go to New York City. I did this whole career in fashion. I've had several iterations of my career up until this point. But it wasn't until, and I never felt this strong urge, I need to have children tomorrow. Mm-hmm. But I knew that I wanted to freeze my eggs because I had seen my stepmom go through IVF. when I was in my late 20s, and I saw how hard it was for her in her early 40s to go through that process. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I want to freeze my eggs. If anything, it's an insurance policy. It'll take pressure off my future relationships. I was so scared. My parents had a difficult divorce. I was so scared of ending up in the wrong relationship and getting a divorce. And I didn't want to just, get into some relationship because I wanted to have kids and I felt like my clock was running out. So I froze my eggs when I was 29 and just kind of like, I'm so glad that I did that. I 10 of 10 recommend it to anybody that is thinking about it. It's one of the best decisions that I've ever made, but I just kind of never really like thought about children again for a little while after that. And I ended up getting into a relationship. When that relationship started, like day one, I'm like, it's really important to me to get married and have children. Like this is a non-negotiable for me. If like, let me know your thoughts. If that's not on the table for you, I get you already had this experience like
early on. So you had
I literally had this conversation on day one.
Yeah.
Like my 20s are not about intentional dating. My 30s have been so insanely intentional. And like, it's not that it's just, I'm so clear on what I want that I'd rather have these conversations early on. It's much easier to have them before you get so emotionally attached. Anyway, long story short, of course, this person says, absolutely, I would get married again. I absolutely would have more kids. I always wanted more kids. So I'm like, okay, great. And, it progresses on many, many months later. And he comes to me and he says, I actually don't know that I want to have more children. And it hit me like a sack of bricks. And that, like, I'm actually that relationship had other, there's a lot of things I could say about that relationship because I had never been in a situation before where having my own kids was potentially taken off the table. The idea of not having my own children, not having like my family, my legacy, my building this life with somebody else. I'm actually very grateful for that experience because it opened my eyes to seeing that. So I wouldn't say similarly to you. I always knew that I wanted kids. I just did not know how strongly I felt about it until I had that experience.
Yes. And sometimes, unfortunately, you have to go through those really hard moments in a relationship for you to figure that out, because you obviously had such a mind-body experience with the idea of being able to have children that it really highlighted how important this was to you. And as you're saying, you didn't really have that feeling before.
I never had that feeling before because it never was something that was like on the table and then taken away. And the second that it was taken away, I was like, holy shit.
Yes.
Holy shit, having kids is really important to me. Because my friends would say to me, like, a lot of my friends have, they're on their second or third kid now. And they're like, oh, are you sure you even want them? I'm like, no, I'm sure I want them. For me, it's always been more important to feel like I'm established in wherever I feel like I need to be in my life, career, or personally, before I then bring kids into the picture, because I have tried to lead my life with so much intention and purpose and design, and growing up in a household where my parents had us so young. And I love them. And I'm so grateful for my parents in our childhood, but like, I wanted things to be different. I want things to be different with the way that my children are raised.
And that's a non-negotiable for you. That is the thing that you cannot compromise yourself on.
Right.
Not a thing.
Right.
And I'm sorry that it took some time. And also that this person said something at first and then changed their mind, which also happens.
People are allowed to change their mind.
People are allowed to change, I know.
Not to like knock him, but like you're allowed to change your mind.
You're allowed to say,
it sucks.
This is what I want
really
right
sucks.
now. And later on in the relationship, something happens. Life happens. And that changes for you. And you might decide, actually, no, I really don't want kids anymore. And I'm really sorry. We'll leave it like this. But it is important to have the conversations, to have these hard moments, to know the answers to these things, because that says to you, oh, I can compromise on this. I can compromise on not having kids. If you hadn't had such a visceral reaction to that and you thought, oh, that's okay, I could see myself not being a mom, then that would have been a thing that you could say,
but it actually like forced me to think about that. It forced me to think about like, what would my life look like if I'm not a mom? Would I be okay just being a stepmom? Would I be okay, being a dog mom? And the answer was no fucking way.
No. And for me, interestingly enough, it was, I cannot be with a partner that wants to have children.
So how early on did you have that conversation in your now?
So after I started dating, after my divorce, that was one of the first things that I looked for, actually, in people.
You had it like on your, you guys met on like Bumble, right?
Yeah. So I think you had that on my profile. And one of the first things that I saw about this person, because I usually don't look at the pictures. So I'm usually not interested. I'm like, I cover up the picture and then I like look at what they have to say, because I'm so much more interested in the person. And if you don't have anything written in your little profile, you might be very attractive, but next. I don't have the time.
You're not looking for the kind of relationship
that I'm looking for. And so on that little kids section that Bumble has regarding wants to, doesn't want to, has kids, there's a few option, doesn't want kids. And so that was the first thing I saw. And I said, oh, I'm intrigued. I'm interested. This person is for me. And so it's so interesting that, again, going back to this idea of non-negotiables, going back to this idea of compromise, and no, I cannot compromise myself. It's the same issue, kids. But mine is different than yours. Yours is has to, want kids. For me, cannot want kids, because this is not a thing that I'm able to compromise on in my relationship.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think like it does take a little bit of time to figure that out about yourself, and then also like be honest and go through, the experience of like you tell me if you don't want to talk about this, but like your marriage, there were children.
Yes, I had.
So you also
I still have stepkids.
You had that experience though of like having like, where I had somebody that had kids from a previous marriage and like more kids around the table, and then it was taken away. You had an experience where there were kids in your life. They're still your stepkids, even though that marriage is over. But like you had that experience, you learned from it. You probably got clearer on, which direction you personally wanted to go with having your own. And then it's like you have to live life.
You have to live it. You really have to live it. It's such an experiment. It is such a, let me try this out. I have this theory, right? And I have this theory that I want to do this thing. And then I go and do it. And then I get feedback, or I get data from
get signal.
You get, and you go, oh, okay, turns out that doesn't feel really good. That's not actually what I wanted to experience. So how do I tweak that theory? How do I tweak that hypothesis? I think life is the ultimate little 5th grade science experiment where you have the hypothesis and the data and the results, and then you go back and you edit things. That is what life feels like to me, at least. We're just constantly re-hypothesizing and trying
recalibrating. You're just constantly recalibrating until you're like, and to me, like that also goes back to compromise. Like you're recalibrating, you're figuring out what am I willing and not willing to compromise on. It's a moving target. It's not black and white.
And I don't think many people are open to that idea because we want life to be so clear. So
it's really scary.
So you've made one hypothesis and you have to stick with that. And that is the thing that you have to do. You made this commitment, you got married, and that's it. You got to do it till the end of life. It doesn't matter if it doesn't work. It doesn't matter if you're miserable and unhappy and this person was unfaithful. No, that is a till death do us part. And if you can't do that, well, then you shouldn't have gotten married in the first place. And so there's a very little tolerance for the fact that we are humans and that we change and that we're constantly recalibrating. And I wish more of us were open to this idea. I know that it's hurtful. I know that you don't want to go through this pain. I know that you want humans to be so unflexible, but we're changing all of the time.
All of the time. And life is changing.
Yeah.
Like look at like, think about who we were pre-pandemic, post-pandemic. Like there will be more things like that happen in our lifetimes, that even technology and AI and like all of these things are just changing at such a rapid pace.
And the couples that are able to make it
are
flexible with each other.
Compromise.
They are able to say, we are going to change.
Yeah.
And
be fluid.
And how do we work with the change versus, no, you're not the person that I married. You're not the person, I didn't sign up for this. I didn't sign up for this version of you, versus, oh, I'm open to the idea of you changing. I'm open to the idea of things looking different. I'm looking to this idea of commitment looking different as we grow older, or who we are as individuals. I'm open to that. Those are the couples that are able to kind of withstand these seasons that we go through in life. If we're very rigid, if we say, no, I cannot tolerate you changing as a human, well, then we can't move forward.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's talk about love bombing versus genuine enthusiasm.
Okay. Go on.
Well, I guess I have to give a little story here. So, oh boy, let's see how I keep this anonymous.
Just tidbits.
Just some little tidbits. Okay. So how do we differentiate between love bombing and genuine enthusiasm? I think, we like, okay, so let's go back to like putting on your best self early on in a relationship. And I think we haven't talked about it on this episode, and we're going to definitely have to do another episode because I feel like we haven't even scratched the surface.
I know, it happens.
It always happens with us. But we haven't talked about the idea of like mirrors and relationships being mirrors and mirroring best qualities, but also worse qualities, or, areas of lack or insecurity. And I think, when you are dating intentionally and you're dating people that are looking for this lifelong partnership, there's a lot of putting on the best self at the beginning. How can you differentiate between if it's genuine enthusiasm or love bombing? Like, what are some things to look for?
Sure. So for those listening that may not know what love bombing is, in relationships, it's just a very intense, early on commitment. I want to have this life with you, and let me show you the life that I can provide for you. And let me be very intentional about all of the things that I want with you, and all of these big, grand promises that are very early on. So it is within first or second date, these individuals that are trying to make life plans with us without really knowing us, without really understanding who we are, without learning us. And so it's kind of, I've fallen in love with the idea of you. I've fallen in love with the idea of being in this relationship
without really even knowing
you. So there is something about the timing of when these behaviors are happening, and it has to do with that I don't really know you. So why are you promising me things that you couldn't possibly promise, because you don't know how this is actually going to turn out. You can't really make any of these promises early on within a relationship because you're just getting to know each other. Yeah. So big, grand love bombs about where we're going, where we're headed, what I envision with you. If it feels too good to be true early on,
it probably is.
Oh, 100% it is, because that intensity is not that slow getting to know each other. It's not that part of, let me show you all parts of myself, because I'm only showing you the best bits. I'm only showing you my representative. I'm only showing you that best.
I love that.
Self.
My representative. I haven't heard that before.
Yeah. Let me send you. This is Emily, my representative. And this is all that she wants
to show you.
Double. Yes, it really is. And so I think the difference between that love bombing and showing that best self is that that best self is also human, and that best self also makes mistakes. That best self also has effed up a little in life and isn't trying to show this picture perfect version of themselves. Yeah, sure. Let me, of course, highlight my best features, but also let me tell you about the times that I'm really not that proud of, or let me tell you a little bit about those things that make me human or make me vulnerable. So it is that showing more pieces of yourself than just the best parts. And I think that that's the difference. The love bombing is intense and the most amazing things, and there's not much space for anything other than that. I don't know if that kind of resonates with you.
No, it does. And I mean, I think it can be hard to differentiate like love bombing from genuine interest sometimes with, with certain people, because you feel like, oh, this is going so well. We have so much in common. Everything is moving along in a positive direction. And then all of a sudden it's like a couple months into the relationship and you're looking back and you're like, wait a minute. I don't know if that is actually in alignment with the person that I know today.
Yes. And I think that it's okay for that to take a little bit of time as well. Social media is sometimes so intense and wrapped up with this idea of the red flags and how we're supposed to be able to determine these red flags right away. And the reality is some of these red flags show up a little bit later on. Yeah. And so it's not, oh, you missed it at the beginning or you failed and you really should have seen this coming. It's more, once you do see them, do something about it.
Yeah. Make a note.
Acknowledge the fact that it is happening. Maybe you didn't see it before. That's okay. You'll probably get better at it further down the line, and you'll have a shorter time span between meeting someone and being able to notice the things to differentiate and to tell the things that are off. But I think the most important part is once you do see it,
you can't unsee it.
You can't unsee it. I know you want to lie to yourself about it because there's so many other things that are potentially great about this person, or you're so sold on this life that you could possibly have with them and the idea of them and the plans that you've made that you don't want to. You don't want to look at the things that are making you uncomfortable, that are giving you that queasy kind of feeling and the visceral. But that's the moment. It's not about being able to determine the red flags because, that's how you win at this dating thing. It's once you do see them, what do you do with them?
Right. I mean, I think it takes a long time to actually get to know somebody. Yeah. Not 2 months, not 3 months. No. Like it takes a very long time. You have to go through seasons. You have to go through hard periods, whether it's like with family stuff, financially, with friends, like you have to go through some hard things to see how you show up for each other in a relationship. And is this somebody that I can potentially like rely on as my support system? Yes. Or can they rely on me? Like, can I show up in a way that they need? And it takes time.
And you have to give it that time.
You have to give it that time. You can't just rip the Band-Aid off because you if you're looking for a serious relationship, not if you're just.
Yeah. So give it that time before you move in with someone. Give it that time before you're ready to get engaged or take things to this level, because you want that time to give you the data, right? You want to go back to the science experiment of dating and give it that time, gather the data, notice how this person shows up in different circumstances and different events and different things that you're going through, and that will give you information. Like the first time that you go, even, oh my God, this is so funny, but driving. How do they handle driving under stress?
That's a really good one.
It's such a silly one, but I get a lot of anxiety from people who are driving and are angry and are feeling always the sense of like the world is against me and I have to drive my car in a way that beats everybody. That, I know it sounds dumb and superficial, but it says something about how they can tolerate stress, about how they view the world, about just world perspective. in a car and how they drive and how they perceive these things. Go through that, give it time and gather the data and then decide what to do with that.
I would say for me, mine is like, so I'm a very social person. I run this large women's networking group. I'm constantly out and about meeting people. And, you know, I've worked in a sales capacity for the last 5 years in some form or another. For me, I need to be able to see how somebody functions in social settings where maybe I know a lot of people in that social setting, and also in a social setting where I don't know anybody. And I need to feel safe and secure in that world with them. So are they okay with me running around and, you know, talking to a lot of different people, getting a lot of attention? I can't necessarily be with them all the time. Of course, I'm going to check in, but like, can they hold their own in a room with me? But then also vice versa. Like, I want somebody that I can support who is also very social and outgoing and has their things going on. But do I feel safe and secure with them? And when the roles are reversed, are they still checking in on me, making sure that I'm being introduced to people, and not in like a codependent way, but can we support each other in this way? And it's a very unique personality type that can handle that or that cannot. And not unfortunately, but like, it just takes time to like have those types of situations come up and see how do people respond.
Yeah. And then getting out of that honeymoon period of the relationship. Also, do not make any decisions about anything.
No decisions in the honeymoon period.
Yes, no big decisions, because that's just brain chemicals. That is just biology saying this is it. This is the person you're supposed to be bonded with. That is the oxytocin flowing. That is, let's bond, create attachments. And then once that kind of dies down, you are left with a lot of other things that aren't so heightened. And so you're able to kind of have a different lens and see their behaviors differently and see yourself differently. So that honeymoon period is beautiful and intense, and enjoy it. And also be aware of not making any big decisions during that time. You're laughing like, oh yeah, that would have been nice.
You live and you learn.
That's it. That is the biggest thing.
All right, so we are stacked. We're all about becoming our own best asset. We're going to jump. Yes. Let's talk about money. Okay. Let's talk about money, relationships, couples. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of stuff on social media right now about 50-50 relationships, like in every possible direction. Yeah. What are your thoughts on 50-50 relationships?
I think you have to both want the same thing. Yeah. Right? If you are a person who wants a 50-50 relationship, then you have to find a person who is also okay with that 50-50 relationship. Not 75-25, not 0 to 100, whatever that may be. I'm not good with math. But you just have to be wanting that same thing. Yeah. Because if you don't, then again, it goes back to this idea of compromising yourself versus being able to compromise on this one particular area of your relationship. So I'm all for autonomy in deciding whatever you want that to look like. Some individuals have more of that traditional want in terms of, I don't want to be with someone who I get to be in a 50-50 relationship with. I want it to look different. And so more than anything, you just have to look at this template. What is the template that a lot of the times is what you grew up with, but then also what have you examined? What have you looked at? What have you challenged? Because the template is just baseline. Mm-hmm. You have to go back and look at that and say, is that really what I want? Is that really what the today me would choose in terms of a relationship? And sometimes that is 50-50. Mm-hmm. I want to be in that equal partnership. And sometimes when it comes to money, no, I want to be in a more traditional kind of structure where my partner is more of the provider and I help with certain things like groceries, or I help with certain things like vacations, but we're both on the same page on that. Yeah.
I think the most important thing is, like, one, you have to figure out what is important to you. Yeah. What kind of relationship do you want when it comes to partnership, when it comes to finances? where are you personally at today?
Yeah.
And then communicating that like with your partner, because it is totally okay to want any single thing on that spectrum.
Yes.
But you have to be honest with yourself first and foremost, and then you have to be honest with your partner. There's a lid for every pot.
Oh my gosh.
There is literally a lid for every single pot out there.
Yes, there is.
But you have to be honest with yourself about what you want. And I think I see some of my friends are so clear on what they want, and then other ones are not clear on what they want. And then they go back and forth on what they're communicating with their partner. And then they end up in the situation where they're upset or frustrated because things are not the way that they want, but they're just not being honest with themselves.
Yes. That's such a big one, right? It goes back to the template.
Yeah.
Go back, go be honest, understand your template, and recognize what you want and say that, communicate that, because again, it's only a matter of time before it becomes a bigger problem. So you start dating and you're like, oh yeah, I'm totally fine being in a 50-50 relationship because that's my representative. The representative
is lying to you.
And she's saying she wants a 50-50 relationship. And then we are 1 year into the relationship and you're having chit chat, with your girlfriend, and you're complaining about the fact that you are in a 50-50 relationship.
Or you're feeling like a twinge of jealousy because their relationship is different than yours. And it's like, well, actually, maybe you need to be honest with yourself.
Yes.
And this is something that's important to you.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? It might actually be totally cool with your partner. Yes. You just didn't communicate it with him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Okay, prenups. What are your thoughts?
As a divorced couples therapist, I think they're nice to have. I know that for a lot of individuals, it's like, well, you're setting yourself up for failure, and you're just kind of saying you're waiting for the marriage to end if you have a prenup. Do not agree with that whatsoever. I think we should all be actually talking about divorce before it even happens, because I think it's one of those things that if you don't think that if you think it's never going to happen to you, you don't prepare for it.
Right.
You think, I'm married, this person's going to be here for me forever, I'm going to be here forever. That doesn't really build a good intentional relationship.
I agree.
Because you think, I can do whatever it is that I want. I don't have to be thoughtful. I can take this person for granted because they're always going to be here. But when you say, you know what, divorce is actually always on the table,
right?
Well, then you're definitely going to act in a way to be preventative. That means let me make sure that I show up actually, not just as my best self when I'm dating you, but when we're in a marriage.
Right.
Let me make sure that I still make plans for date night because that's important. Let me make sure that we have check-ins because that's all of those preventative things that prevents the divorce from happening. So the prenup is just saying, let's be honest about the fact that this is a thing on the table. Yeah. Let's be honest that divorce is actually, for me, always an option. And I think knowing that that's an option is actually what makes us more intentional and more thoughtful about the relationship that you have, because you could lose it, because it is a thing that shouldn't be taken for granted.
Agree. I'm all for prenups. I think they're extremely important. I think if you think about like building a building, you put a sprinkler system in, you put an alarm system in, you have fire safety checks, like you are prepared for the worst possible outcome. Yeah. You hope that it doesn't happen, but you have a game plan and a strategy. I think they also allow you to have a lot of really honest conversations about money up front, about if you want children, how are children going to be raised, what are the expectations around lifestyle, spending habits. I think it actually prompts a lot of some of the most important conversations you can have in a relationship, because, as a couples therapist, money problems are some of the biggest problems in relationships. Yes. The earlier that you can have these conversations and talk things out, I think it's actually really healthy.
I'm with you. I think they prompt us, as you're saying, to have some of these conversations that maybe we don't want to have, but need to be having, especially before we get married, especially before we make this commitment.
And then also, like, as a woman, like, so many women end up in marriages where they fall into a role where they're not working or they're not creating any income, which totally, there is nothing wrong with that. But this is a way to empower you as a woman to like have a better grasp on finances in the marriage. If, you know, you become a young widow, if you like, you do get a divorce, unfortunately, like there's so many different things that can happen. Understanding, you know, financial literacy from the standpoint of your relationship is one of the most important things I think we should be doing.
Yes, and I work with a lot of women who sometimes feel they can't leave their marriage because they don't have
a financial situation.
100%. And so it is this sense of, I know that I want to leave my marriage. I know that I want to get divorced. And yet I don't know what my life is going to look like. My life is going to look like. I don't know if I can afford it. I don't know if I can do this. We have kids. And yeah, that is a thing that holds us, especially women, that holds us back from getting divorced and you know, going through with whatever comes next. And
knowledge is power.
Yeah, it really is. And it's just just do it.
Yeah.
Just have it there.
You do it and like you get your own attorneys and you figure it out and you have like a roadmap and a game plan and you'll feel so much better, so much more secure. And I feel very strongly
I'm with you.
Probably a little bit of a controversial opinion, but that's me.
Yeah, that's okay. We get to. And I think that that's one of the things that's very good for this time for us to be able to have and to hear different opinions, right? It was always so very one color, and that was, you know, this is what you should do, this is what you shouldn't do. And so the fact that we have this opportunity to hear different perspectives, to have podcasts like this that are showcasing different ways of living, different ways of doing things, I think it's so important to have.
I'm right there with you. All right, let's move to lightning round, this or that, my favorite part of the show. All right. Slow burn or fireworks?
Can we do sparklers? I
love sparklers
because I think you need to feel something for the person that you're dating, right? So whether that is our conversation's really fun and interesting and I enjoy their company, but it doesn't feel like really big, right? Or I don't know. There has to be something that you feel. There has to be that little sparkler. But if we have fireworks, I'm usually kind of wary about the fireworks.
I think actually if you have fireworks and you have this crazy spark, it's actually a red flag and something triggering inside of you that is an unhealthy attachment to that person. Like, is it some kind of avoidant behavior or anxious behavior? And that's actually what's getting triggered inside of you if the fireworks are too big.
If they're too big, right? That's what I mean, sparklers. Like, you know, you have those little like, ooh, that feels good. Like I enjoy time with this person.
I'm excited to see them.
I'm excited. I look forward to hearing from them. But the fireworks, that's usually...
It's like a pendulum.
Yes.
You want to be somewhere.
Yes. It goes back to sometimes the love bombing. It's so intense. I feel so much for this person. Yes. And then when they're not there, I feel such like a dip. It's such a low. It's such a low. It's such a high and low. But the sparklers, I think they're nice. I think it's nice to be excited, and I'm with the sparklers.
I like that. I like the sparklers. Yeah. Okay, next one. Name the feeling or fix the problem.
Ooh, name the feeling. Because I don't think you can always fix the problem. So there's so many issues that we have within a relationship that are because sometimes there's so many issues that we have in the relationship that are not solvable problems just because we have a different way of viewing things. So we have to come up with something that doesn't fix the problem, but allows us to kind of coexist with it. And so the more that we're able to name it, the more that we're able to understand each other's perspectives, even if we can't, quote unquote, fix it, that's what creates that compassion. That's what creates that empathy for one another and allows for you to work through it, even though you can't fix it.
I like that. Okay. 24-hour response, meaning like wait 24 hours to respond.
Ew. I'm already like, no.
Or read receipt speed.
No.
Whatever. What does that mean? Read receipt, like respond immediately.
Respond immediately. Like I think that's what that means.
Yeah.
Right. Oh my gosh. 24 hours. I think that's so rude.
I think that's like playing games.
I would never.
I think that's like dumb.
Yeah. That's exactly what I think. If anybody's waiting that long to respond to you, not interested.
They're either not interested or they're playing games.
Yeah, I don't have the capacity to, especially now. Everybody's on their phones.
So their watch, their computer,
you're getting millions of notifications.
Yes.
So if you cannot respond to someone that you are dating within a 24-hour window, I don't know what to tell you.
See ya.
Yeah. But the other one's intense too. The read receipts, when you're like expecting somebody to respond to
terror texting.
Yeah, that's also not good, and that no. But I think 24 hours is the worst one. Like not hearing from someone. Yeah. Big time.
Okay. Scripts. Okay. Like meaning we're having a problem in the relationship. You're going to show up with a script or somatic tools. And can you explain what somatic tools are?
Yes. So we talked a little bit about it, but we were talking about the mind, body, and how you had this whole body reaction to the idea of you not having kids, and you couldn't even possibly put, a name on that. But that is, your body has reactions to events, the things that are happening. Your nervous system has a reaction. And so the somatic component of that is, how do you work with what your body is experiencing in a way to just recalibrate, and in order to get to a more balanced state. So that would be breathing, that would be mindful tools, going for mindful walk, or that would be some meditation. So all of these kind of skills and tips and tools and tricks to work with our nervous system and to just create an embodied experience. So we're just including the body in what the mind is processing. And scripts is more of that mental kind of capacity. As a therapist and as a writer, I'm very big into words, and I'm always thinking about how to say things and how to word things. But I think somatics is probably the best place to start, because the body's having a reaction, and sometimes we can't access certain parts of our brain until we're in a more calm state. And so we might have to do some breath work. We might have to do some sensory work so that we're able to kind of ground ourselves in the moment so that we can access the scripts. So although I am a word person and I love words and I love scripts and I'm very much a words of affirmation girly, there's so much about the body and how the body needs to be in a certain state in order to be able to be receptive to the scripts, that I would start with the body. Yeah.
I love that. I feel like once it's like learning to self-regulate before you then bring what's bothering you into the relationship. They're both important, but it's like which one comes first.
Correct. Definitely.
Okay, last one is, I love this one. Okay. Sunday check-in, or like regular check-in, or ad hoc talks.
I'm all about intentional Sunday check-ins.
I am so right there with you. I have it scheduled on my calendar. It's called Energy Audit.
Oh, I love
3 p.m. on Sundays.
I love that you have a name for it. And I think that that's what we should all do. We should give it a name so that we put it on our schedule. Because the reality is, if you do not schedule it, it probably isn't going to happen. It's not always fun to have these check-ins. Sometimes they're uncomfortable. It takes a lot of energy to do them. So it's very easy to just say, oh, we'll just do it later. Or, oh, we're fine. Everything's okay. But if you have it scheduled, you will make it a priority. And it's going to the gym. It's the time to go to the gym for your relationship. And you don't want to do it. But once you get in there and you start going, it feels so much better. It really does. You get the oxytocin from the connection. You leave that conversation tiny bit more connected.
100%.
Better afterwards.
Every time I have done them in my relationships, like there have been some very uncomfortable conversations, but I always come out of them feeling so much closer and more connected to my partner, and like to the point where like, wow, we both will say like, I'm so glad we did that. I'm really grateful we can have these conversations. I feel so much closer, more connected. No regrets there.
And that's what we mean when we say relationships take work. That is the work. It's not that you're miserable and the work is, I just have to get through this and I have to, do all of these things that I don't want to do. No, it is
suppress my needs.
Right.
Or,
that's not work.
People please or whatever. That's not the work.
That's not the work that we're talking about.
Work.
Yeah, that is, you're probably not doing the work if you are doing those things. Having the Sunday check-ins, being intentional about that, that's the work that we mean within the relationship that you need to be doing. And so the work is the schedule. The work is making sure that you have time for it. The work is all of these little bits and pieces that take effort and intentionality, but not, oh my God, I'm so miserable in this relationship, but relationships take work. So I have to feel this because this is the work that they're
supposed to feel bad.
I'm supposed to
feel bad. No, you're not supposed to feel bad. No. You're supposed to feel things and talk about them and work through them and compromise and
on the things that you can.
On the things that you can, but also like the very first most important step is figuring out who you are, what you want, what your non-negotiables are.
And being honest.
What does this dream life look like? And being honest. And there is like literally no shame in wanting anything.
Yeah. It's just hard. I think it's hard for us to be honest with ourselves sometimes because we do want to send the representative, because we do want to be this person. But you can't be that person
and be happy.
Long. Yeah. You can't do it for very long because you can't be happy.
You're not going to be happy.
Correct.
This was so fun. I feel like we did not even cover like 25% of the things
That's what happened.
In an unsurprising turn of events.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely do this again. But thank you so much for coming on, Maria. Where can everybody find you?
I am Holistically Grace on social media, and I think that's it. Like
that's it. I think everywhere. Holistically Grace.
Holistically Grace. Yeah.
Your website.
Website is also that holisticallygrace.com.
And then you have
an upcoming book about, actually we were talking about that honesty. So it is about self-deception. So the lies that we tell ourselves and the need for that self-honesty to live our actual best lives.
And then you take patients online and in person in Miami?
Yes. I'm Miami based, and I have some clients that I see in person, and then a lot of the clients that I work with are virtual because everything's virtual these days, but I do both.
And you do both couples and individuals?
I do. I work with couples and I work with a lot of women as well. I think that that's a bit of my sweet spot, working with women going through relationship transitions and figuring themselves out, and women going through divorce as well.
Yes. Yeah. All right. You guys can find her at her website, Holistically Grace, or on social media, Holistically Grace. Thank you so much, Maria.
Thank you, Emily.
That's a wrap on this episode of Stacked. If this one added value, share it with someone who's ready to level up their financial life. Subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if you're feeling generous, leave a rating and review. It helps us keep the show going and reach more people who are serious about becoming their own best asset. You can subscribe to our newsletter at www.stackedassets.co for weekly intel on Bitcoin markets, business, and living well. Follow along on socials at Stacked Assets or my personal at Emily Dempsey for more on Bitcoin business and building the life you actually want. I'll see you next week. Stay stacked.